bring in, if we might, Senator Jim Banks, senator from Indiana, fixing his jacket, getting straight. You coming in the wrong environment, Senator, if you think this is going to be all about being just straight-laced. Sorry. There we go. You just came back from a vote, Senator, right? You had to run out. So I understand why you had to put your jacket on.
I raced to get back. Good to be with you.
Hey, Senator, is there a dress code when you make your way into the chamber for a quick vote? Like, do you have to throw the coat and tie on? What's the decorum on that?
I got busted a couple of weeks ago. I came straight from the airport. I had on khakis and a jacket with a tie, but I had my sneakers on, and they would not let me onto the floor of the United States Senate. And I thought, I look over my shoulder and I see Fetterman in a hoodie, and I thought, how does this guy get away with it? And I can't wear my sneakers onto the floor coming straight from the airport. So, kind of a lesson in Senate decorum, and I'm still trying to figure that one out.
No, you got to help me understand that. And I'm not doing a partisan thing. I'm serious. So, okay, there's a dress code. You can't wear your sneakers onto the floor of the Senate. Okay, I get it. But then, I mean, Fetterman does wear, and I by the way, I sort of like Fetterman and what he's doing and how he's blazing his own sort of independent path. And so I'm not like taking a cheap shot. I'm genuinely curious at the inconsistency. He's wearing tennis shoes, right, with that hoodie?
So he can't wear the hoodie onto the Senate floor, but he can stand in the doorway and say yes or no, and they record his vote just by doing that. So he doesn't walk onto the floor. I tried to walk onto the floor with my sneakers, was prevented from doing that. So I was able to do the same thing from the doorway, cast my vote, and go find some dress shoes to wear for the next time.
So he stands outside and gives thumbs up, thumbs down. How fascinating. I don't know. That escaped my attention. I'm very interested in that. Okay. I think I want to start. Do I want to start on a positive note or a negative note? Let's start on a negative note. Let's start with NPR. Let's start with some of what went down in the House yesterday. So Catherine Marr, head of NPR, was there, and Congressman Brandon Gill was really cross-examining her on some of the stuff she said in the past. In fact, let's share a little bit of that with the audience of how it went between Gill and Marr.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall.
Do you believe?
That's really fascinating exchange. I mean, you have a bill, Senator, to defund NPR, I believe. But I don't know how she. Wow, that's pretty brave, by the way. Just here's your words. Don't remember, didn't say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just goes to show how unserious these people are who run NPR. Over $100 million the taxpayers have spent giving to a left-wing propaganda media outlet. It would be like the taxpayers funding Breitbart on the right, except for Breitbart is accurate, and you can go there and actually read the news. With NPR, it is a left-wing propaganda outlet. And she proved it yesterday. I had my own run-in with NPR back in the first Trump term. The CEO at the time was a guy named John Lansing. And he came to my office after earlier in my political life, I thought I could go on NPR and do interviews and maybe educate people and maybe get a fair shot to talk about the news of the day. And I did an interview. You might remember this. It was related to the Russian collusion hoax and the first impeachment hearings about the phone call between President Trump and Zelensky. And I did an interview, and in the interview, I talked about how Adam Schiff lied about coordinating with the whistleblower. In fact, at the time, there was a New York Times story of all places that confirmed that Adam Schiff was in touch and coordinating with the whistleblower, but Adam Schiff was telling people that he'd never met or talked to the whistleblower. And in an NPR interview in 2019, I said that Adam Schiff lied about it. The interview ended. It aired on NPR, and with NPR, these interviews, different time zones, so they'll run every hour in different markets. And NPR's
Right.
listeners backlashed against me so much for saying that Adam Schiff lied that NPR they put up a story. They'd never done it before. They fact checked me and said that I lied about Adam Schiff lying. Over time, it was proven that I was right, but it was my own case proving what we already know, that NPR is a propaganda outlet that defends and supports the Democrat Party, is anti-Republican, and all the while the taxpayers are funding it, and that's the shame of it. We finally have a president
Yeah.
who gets it and wants to defund NPR, do something about it. I stand with him on that. That's why I've introduced this bill. I introduced it 2 or 3 times in the House. I'm brand new to the Senate. I've introduced the Defund NPR Act in the Senate for the first time. I'm getting co-sponsors. To me, this is common sense. It's long past time to take taxpayer dollars away from a left-wing propaganda outlet. We're gonna do everything that we can to make sure that happens.
So I want to ask you a curiosity that I have. So what you said is undoubtedly true with anyone with a modicum of common sense or who has ever at all paid attention to the reporting of NPR. It is not close. We're not talking about a 51-49 lean to the left. We're talking about a hard lean to the left. However, if you see a lot of these polling and by the way, even some left-wing groups are the ones that put these things together on who's objective, who's far right, who's far left. You've probably seen all that stuff. NPR always scores well, right? And that's bled over. There is a segment of the American public that's like, well, NPR, that's unbiased. That's truth-telling organization, right? And I don't know, I want my curiosity with you is why? When something can be that far left but still ride under the cover of we are more of an objective truth teller than, say, Fox, right? It's really interesting as to why. And I'll forward you 2 theories. One, just legacy, just a legacy brand over time that has been built on that. And the other is tone. I always say this, and I know how it affects my career. I truly do. I think it was Ronald Reagan's communication advisor that said it is 80% how you look, it's 15% how you sound, it's 5% what you actually say. And he's not saying that's right or wrong. He's just saying that's how audiences consume a message. And that 15% of how you sound, maybe the tone of NPR just makes everybody go, oh, they're so calm and drolling, and therefore it's got to be true.
So you're saying the tone is deceptive, which I
guess I don't know.
Let me add another theory to that.
Senator, it's easier to listen to Keith Olbermann and know you're dealing with a ranting lunatic than the host of NPR.
Let me add another layer to that. If you're a normal person, you don't sleep and breathe politics every day, you listen to NPR on the radio when you drive to work. Maybe you like some of the entertaining, the quiz shows, or some of the maybe the NPR, like the music or something. So maybe you're drawn to that, and then you hear the NPR news and you think to yourself, well, the government's paying for this, so of course it has to be unbiased. Right, $100 million of taxpayer dollars going to fund NPR. Of course, I mean, maybe some people, maybe it's just the fact that it's paid for by taxpayer dollars that gives it an unfair reputation that doesn't hold up, and then gullible people listen to it and think that really is the news, and not realizing that indeed it is propaganda. But let me add one more note to that. Last year, a senior editor at NPR, somewhat of a whistleblower, spoke the truth about what's going on there, and said that at the NPR headquarters, there are 87 registered Democrats in editorial roles, 0 Republicans. So that proves the point that we're making. This is not a news outlet. They don't deserve our taxpayer dollars. In fact, it's un-American that we would allow our taxpayer dollars to fund an outlet, a propaganda outlet like that. That's why we
totally
have to
agree.
It's long past time to stop it.
It's actually scandalous. It's actually scandalous that we would fund something like that. But yet still, let's just deal with a little bit of reality. Like, okay, that could probably get through the House. Oh, can that get through the Senate?
Well, something like that, 60 votes in the Senate, except for the reconciliation bills, the one big beautiful bill that's working its way through the House and the Senate, which triggers a rule in the Senate that only requires 50 votes to pass something. So it's a great place for us to pass cut spending cuts in the reconciliation bill for something like this. And then on top of that, there's something called rescission packages that OMB that the White House can offer to the Congress. And I hope that zeroing out NPR funding will be a part of a rescission package if it's not a part of the reconciliation package. So, Will, there are ways to make it happen to get it done without 60
That's what Senator
votes.
Paul's been talking about, right? Rescission?
Yes.
Is that,
and he's exactly right about it.
okay? And you guys are going to put a rescission bill together, so that's going to be, it's not an either or something. That's going to be in addition to all the rest of the budgeting.
It has to be, yeah. But the rules require that it comes from the White House. It's not something that Rand Paul or Jim Banks can draw up in the Senate and offer on the Senate floor. The rescission package has to come from the OMB director, Russ Vought, to start that process. So Senator Paul and a lot of us are pushing on the White House to send that to us immediately. You might recall that right before the recess last week, we passed the full year CR. I don't know if that's ever happened before, a full year CR. And it's not perfect. It's not ideal. There are lots of parts of that many of us don't like, but it took all of the negotiating room away from the Democrats. So we passed the full year CR, but that doesn't cut all of the programs that Elon and Doge and the Trump administration are finding, all of these horrible, awful, woke, pro-transgender ideologies at embassies around the world and studies and departments. Even though Elon and Doge are zeroing out those line items now, it doesn't permanently cut them for the future. And that's why we need a rescissions package. That's why we need to cut it in the reconciliation bill to make sure that these programs like NPR are cut out completely and doesn't come back again the next time that there's a funding fight.
All right, let's do this. I said I also want to do some positive. So both Dr. Marty Makary and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya are ready to take their seats leading NIH and CDC, right? And
FDA.
This is a really remarkable moment. It's a remarkable moment that, people at home often don't pay attention to, cabinet appointments, much less department appointments and this type of thing, because most of the time it's keeping the trains running on time in America, or at least that's the way we think of it. There are actually revolutionary things that happen under the covers, but this is actually revolutionary and on its face revolutionary because these two guys were such outliers during a national panic, during a national pandemic panic. And Bhattacharya was part of the Great Barrington Declaration, I believe, and censored and so forth. Makary was a truth teller here on Fox and other places from Johns Hopkins. I don't know. I think it's not. I get excited about who the Cowboys are going to draft in the first round. It's rare I get excited about somebody who's going to be appointed to lead CDC. But I don't know. This is really exciting, Senator.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Bhattacharya himself. You think about that. I don't know if I can describe it, but every now and then on social media, you'll see that photo of the massive crowd of people, and they're all saluting Hitler. And then there's that one guy who's got his hands down and showing the groupthink, right? And that's Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya was the guy who was saying that everyone else in the public health community, all of the so-called experts are wrong. That's the Great Barrington Declaration. He spoke out against the lockdowns. He said this is bad for our kids. By the way, I have three school-age daughters in public schools. They were, watching the raw deal that they got through the lockdowns and COVID. They were the ones who got the biggest raw deal. And Dr. Bhattacharya was the one guy out there saying that this is bad for society. It's bad for our kids. It's bad for our country. And then you turn around and President Trump picks that guy. He says, I want that guy to lead the NIH. Never forget, too, that the NIH is where Dr. Fauci worked. So this guy who became an outcast, the whole public health establishment, they all hated him. They still hate him. And now he's confirmed to lead the agency, the institution that that outcasts him to begin with. That says more about President Trump than it does about Bhattacharya. That President Trump is serious about trying to fix the wrongs that came out of the last 4 years. Dr. Makari at FDA. I mean, you think about the Make America Healthy Again agenda and what FDA does to approve our drugs and to truly get this country in a healthier place than where we've been. Mental health issues. I've had a lot of talks with. I sit on the HELP committee, where we will directly be working with Secretary Kennedy and Bhattacharya, Dr. Makari. I just had the president's nominee for the new Surgeon General come into my office, and she's really focused on this MAHA movement and how the Surgeon General can be a key point person and talking about public health in the country in a big way. So you're right. Well, this is really exciting. It's an area that doesn't get enough attention. But you look at what happened during the lockdowns and COVID, and that shows you why it matters. And President Trump is hell-bent on making sure that never happens again.
Senator, I don't think I've ever asked you this, and I'm going to run the risk of putting you in a position having to say Harvard. But are you Indiana guy? Are you a Notre Dame guy? What? Thank goodness. I was really nervous you were going to say Princeton. Who was it I did that? The other day, guys, I did that with somebody. I was like, we're going to talk good state college, and then they had to run off Ivy League. And I could see the shame in their eyes when they had to announce that they went to Yale. But, yeah, so you're an Indiana guy.
That's right. It took me 8 years to graduate. It's a great school. It's a great basketball. I was there when they fired Bobby Knight, the dark days of Indiana basketball history. So I paid my way through school. I come from a pretty humble background. I grew up in a trailer park. My dad is a retired union factory worker. My mom was a cook in a nursing home. I was the first in my family to go to college. So I paid my way through college, and that's probably not why. I think I ended up with a 2.1 or 2.2 GPA when I finally graduated Indiana University. But I was pretty damn proud of it to come out of it with a degree. And look at me now. I mean, only in America could a kid who comes from that be a United States senator and have the opportunity that I've had.
Yeah.
And I love this country. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. And I am determined every single day that I have here to protect that American dream, that a kid from a trailer park grows up and does what I've been able to do. That's what I want for my daughters. That's what I want for your kids, for our grandkids, to protect that for the future of this country. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, that's awesome. You need to be corrected on one small thing. You're a football school now. By all accounts and records and recent history, you're a football school over a basketball school currently.
Right. We had a great
I don't expect that to last.
I do.
And by the way, you do. Good for you. Good for you. Maybe you know something about your NIL program that I don't know, but history has a way of reverting back to the mean. And by the way, it was Senator Cotton. You got to be an Arkansas Razorback, and he had to shamefully say, no, I don't know. What Ivy League school is it? You probably know, Senator.
Harvard.
I don't know which one he had. Harvard. Okay. Yeah.
I think Liz Warren was one of his professors.
Well, he made it through that, it appears, without too much indoctrination. I love it that we're in a place, though, where somebody has to be ashamed. They're ashamed to say they went to Harvard over the University of Indiana or University of Arkansas. That's what I like. I want that, America. Right. Senator, it's great to have you on the show. You're always welcome, both here and at 4 o'clock, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
You got it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, Senator.